Do some chat from the deep here, I think. Where's my chat? There's my chat. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Chat from the Deep, our weekly live stream post-session discussion. We talk about what just happened during D&D. This is the chat for session 31. So if you haven't watched that, go do that because there will be spoilers. I'm your DM, Eric, and joining me, we have Gottwald's player, Chris.
I'm eating cereal and drinking whiskey at the same time.
Oh... That, cereal really doesn't pair with anything, I find.
No, it doesn't. It really doesn't, but...
And Hex player Raymond, what are you eating? You're eating some kind of like...
an ice cream bar.
Ice cream bar. That sounds much more appetizing.
Mm-hmm.
Cereal and whiskey. Oof. What kind of cereal?
Honey Chex.
Okay.
Yeah. No approval from...
Well, I don't think I would approve of any cereal with pairing with anything else. But
well, it was mostly... I only got
I'd
this
ask.
much left, but I usually finish the whiskey about at the 2-hour mark.
Yeah.
We went pretty quick tonight.
Oh, yeah.
I
You
had
weren't
some
done with your
whiskey
whiskey
left,
yet.
I wasn't done my whiskey yet, yeah.
Yeah, it was hard to say how long that last seat... I guess I should change my map setting. How long that was actually going to take. I had no idea, but I really, because of it was so placed at the end, I was like, I don't have anything else planned. I don't want to move
it'd be
on.
hard to fit anything else in there.
Yeah,
right?
so it's just, I'm glad we didn't have to rush this final part, and I could kind of, go into it for the whole session. But also,
Which
I definitely didn't have anything after.
I think is smart. Like climaxes are like
They
you
kind of
want
deserve a
that to be
session.
the only thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice to get the fall. It's nice to not have to have to go late and then end the session right there and then do like the falling
Right.
action next time. It's nice, I
Yes.
think, in this case to do like, okay, now we get to end it. We do the falling action, and then just next session we start with a clean slate.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure. The tricky situation here was we were going, which Ray wasn't here for this last session. We went from like a theater of the mind chase sequence where you guys were going several rounds and rolling complications, having bad things happen to you, and then going from that into a combat situation, which means I had to literally suddenly invent all of that Sahuagin horde as actual tokens on the battlefield. But also, I'm like, I'm not clearly going to run all of those creatures as
Right.
individual units, but I tried to do both. I was like, all right, there are some bad guys that are going to be run as standard combatants in these two rooms, and I'm also going to have the horde as basically like a layer action, as like, hey, every round the horde advances, and then it'll just be however many attacks or things I feel like is what they're going to end up doing. So I try to create kind of a mass combat situation, but also have regular combat in the middle of that, I guess.
You're muted.
Oh.
Oh, you were.
No, for a second. Weird. What reminded me of is like the like an abstracted version of like the Mario levels where the camera never stops moving. Like you've got stuff like in the frame of action where you're having to deal with it,
Yeah.
but also you've got this thing behind you that's coming up, and you constantly have to be moving forward, or
Yeah.
it's gonna hit you and you're gonna die.
True. Yeah. So you have to deal with the immediate threat, but also you have an overarching threat of like still having to move forward quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it only really got dicey in that very last round where I was like, oh wait, because you stayed behind, suddenly all the Sahuagin is now effectively caught. I've managed to like have reasons and other effects to where they've been at bay for a good chunk of the time, but now they're literally like closing in on you.
I mean, I think our team did a good job of that. Like,
Yeah.
like people did stuff to like keep the hordes at bay,
Which I
pretty
appreciated because that
effectively.
was partly is going to be a requirement, is like you guys had to move forward and come up with solutions of keeping them blocked and away from you guys, which, yeah, ball bearings and gust of wind, all that kind of stuff did very well.
I think it was a good blend, from Theater of Mind last time, and then, it's still the horde approaching, and then once they're finally on screen, then you can, like, individualize them.
A little bit. I still didn't obviously run every single token, but I did try and be like, all right, well, they're gonna throw some javelin shots are coming out of here or whatever, and then when they finally close in, like, all right, well, a couple of them will get melee attacks. I'm still not running like every single token. Also, I greatly reduced the numbers of the original units here, having learned from previous sessions in this dungeon how it was very much overtuned, in every single room. Same thing here.
Interesting.
Yeah, number 2 room, which was that one with the portcullis, it only had those 2 Sahuagin, which is fine. I kept that one. The other room, though, I think I halved like the number of enemies in there, which also you guys are very at the end of this, dungeon, and pacing wise, I'm looking at all your stuff, going, yeah, we need to lessen the amount of stuff coming at you. You got
It was definitely threatening enough, though.
Yes, yeah.
Like, we still felt like we had to run and not just stay and kill them all.
Yeah. How much healing did we have to give Gottwald? How much damage did you take?
Yeah.
Like,
all I did was stand there. I didn't really do much besides stand there.
Tank mode. I mean, you took damage. That was the whole thing. Like, the queen had to heal you twice. I think you took a lot of potions of healing. Like,
yeah.
It was.
It's an interesting fight because, like, on paper, like the number of enemies and the type of enemies, it doesn't seem like a difficult fight or a challenging fight. But the stress of it came from like the context of the fight. Like the speed with which we were trying to defeat these guys and move. And
I like those fights where you have an extra objective and it's not just, okay, we're trading blows with each other. In this case, it was, hey, you've got to get past this gate as your objective. So yeah, it requires like somebody's got to do extra actions or extra inventive things to try and surmount this obstacle. And the other thing is you have to keep the horde at bay as long as you can. So there's multiple objectives going on versus attacking, but also there are enemies that you have to attack also. So hopefully in this situation, like everybody can do something, which I think we did. What I had not realized at all until we started this session was that you guys had lost your light. And Savra and Toril literally could not see. Now, what I do in my campaigns, and I've done this for a couple campaigns now, is obviously I give everybody like a 5-foot radius glow or whatever they can see immediately around them. But if you don't have a light, that's all you can see. Like, you really can't see beyond that. And there was at least a round or two where Toril or Reese was like, I can't do anything, I can't see anything. Or he's like...
both Heather and Reese did this. And
can somebody light a torch?
Yeah, I don't want to argue, but like everybody should have torches in the back just from like just the starting equipment. Like you should just have torches.
I agree. And like, they were like, nope. I think I had Savra activated her drift globe, which somebody did mention it was in the zombie. I assumed I think she mentioned she grabbed it at some point if she didn't. But I was okay with her having it. But I think she had to wait like a round or something before she actually activated it. And then that was basically your only light source for a while, which we had just kind of forgotten about that, I guess, because she had the zombie light source for a while, and that just counted. But then I like the fact you guys were running through these dark hallways, kind of added to the stress of it in the previous session. And when you made it here, it's like, there's still no light in this dungeon until you actually make it outside.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, balance-wise, it felt pretty close. I got pretty worried about Gottwalded several times, but I think the weird balancing thing here is you guys, although your resources had gotten super low, Mac actually never got touched this whole fight. He was doing just fine, but everybody else was in bad shape, is that you acquired literally an NPC like every session to where you had double the size of your party. Now, not all of them are very capable. They're not all Borgeses. The Lizardfolk Queen, weirdly, was the opposite of Borges. I could never roll well for her at all, and eventually I played it off like she's more weakened and injured than she let on, but it was literally just the dice were like, oh, she's not impressive at all.
Yeah.
The Triton, same thing, was never impressive in battle. Borges was very impressive, and then we only saw Master Sliver this battle, which I used the Were-Rat Assassin stat block from Monster Manual Expanded, and it is... like a high-level rogue, basically.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, he did pretty good.
It seemed pretty effective. Yeah, he came in with a pretty nice stat block. So I was not...
that did help a lot. Us having all those NPCs that were doing stuff. Yeah.
I my hope was it didn't take anything away from you guys, but it was kind of like this is a weird reward you guys have is that you do have this extra firepower coming in here and helping you at the end, basically.
It's almost like, I don't know, like the commonalities of a normal fight, the NPCs were taken care of, and we were taking care of the extra objectives.
Yeah,
like the keep the horde at bay.
Yeah,
and get the gate open and get the prisoners out. We kind of let the NPCs do the actual damage.
Yeah, I was keeping them to basically auto attacks.
Yeah.
Or in the case of the Queen, she was healing you for a couple rounds.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I mean, in hindsight, I think it still helped with balance.
Yeah.
Like, I know Chris was
Definitely.
saying like on paper it looks not like a bad fight, but at the same time we were being flanked from both
You're
sides
being
Yeah.
flanked. You've got to
with the
open the
tank,
gate.
the
Yeah.
tanks in the center, and the the not tanks are exposed to the flankers, so we could have been easily overrun and
And
taken
you,
out pretty
True.
quickly.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Savra and Twirl were both at 50% hit points. I think Gottwald was starting the fight at like 10% hit points or something.
Yeah.
Which that's a big deal too. And also just minus almost all of your resources. I think Savra only had 1 or 2 spell slots left.
Right. And at some point she says, like, I'm done.
Yeah, I'm done. I'm down to
cantrips now.
cantrips. Yeah, which I mean, I think you couldn't have asked for a better like balance at that point for a dungeon aspect. It's like, okay, we're literally at the last thing and we're like out of all of our shit. We're out of
Yeah.
hit dice. We're stumbling towards the exit.
Mm,
Yeah, you guys hadn't long rested in like 6 sessions or something crazy.
That's wild. But yeah.
This
that
one
makes
took a
sense.
lot longer than I expected, but
Which I'm surprised that I mean Heather wasn't more frustrated by that because like that like in terms of like different classes how they react to that sort of thing, like wizards get the short end of that stick for sure.
yeah, it does help. I think in a lot of cases you make wizards and sorcerers and all the long rest guys too powerful if you have too short of an adventuring day,
Yes, that's
because
true.
they will very quickly overpower everybody else if they can just drop fireballs and shit all the time.
Mhm.
But once you start extending the adventuring day and then actually short resting a couple times, suddenly that brings up the power level of your fighters, your warlocks, your monks, everybody that's got those kind of quicker short rest abilities.
Mhm.
And it won't always be the case where we'll have these like 6 sessions of one long rest. This is probably an extreme example, but yeah, I guess I was pretty impressed by the way that she was able to couch those spell slots. I know Mac had run out of spell slots like 2 sessions ago. Gottwald had run out of hit dice. Like it was definitely pretty low.
Yeah.
I don't know how you feel about all the objectives here, because we try to stealth our way in at first, but
Yeah,
I could tell at the barrack fight with the seaweed,
yeah,
when we had taken a lot of hits and used a lot of slots, it's like we're not gonna get all these objectives you're listing. You're like,
Yeah.
save the prisoners, save the lizard queen, save Master Sliver, and take out the leaders in a 3-level dungeon. It's like,
that barracks fight was my big fuck up where I should have done a better look at that and seen like, oh, I should have really rebalanced this and eliminated a lot of those guys. I don't know if we still would have wanted to do the big boss fight with the barons and everything. But at least you might have felt not so like, oh shit, we gotta just get out of here and go on the main objective. Had you guys gone left instead of right, if we go all the way back to when you had just first rescued the Triton and Borgus,
Mhm.
you guys chose right and went up to the barracks. Had you gone left, you would have fought a room full of those shell sharks, which are also pretty nasty. They've got blood frenzy, they've got really high AC, and they attack twice for a lot of damage. They don't have they don't have any other abilities. They're not intelligent, but they're still pretty nasty. But there's also like a secret treasure room you could have gotten into. It was very trapped but full of treasure. You had no way of knowing that.
Right.
And had you gone upstairs from that, you still would have ended up in the same upstairs position, but you wouldn't have hit the other room full of sharks. There was another room, which I got rid of this NPC. It was like a telepathic lobster who...
One too many NPCs.
It was one too many
One
NPCs.
too many humanoid sea creatures.
Yeah.
Just-
That one was just a lobster. It was just a
Yeah.
fucking
Oh,
lobster.
it was just a lobster.
regular
Oh,
ass
it
lobster.
wasn't even humanoid. Okay.
But it was intelligent and could speak telepathically.
All right.
For some reason, and it knew everything about it. Was like this big magic DM like NPC you can give that knows all the information. I was like, well, that's obviously, yeah, it's a bridge too far, and also I'm throwing NPCs at them left and right. It doesn't seem like we need to do that. But yeah, that left side
Right.
probably would have been...
It's a question of who cares at this point. Like at
Yeah,
this point of
exactly.
their adventure in this dungeon, what does this guy offer?
Yeah, but other than that, you would have ended up in a similar position, and then you could go down to the temple. Or had you gone in the north side, it would have been a fight with a big baron who is stronger than the champions. And then there's another baron, the baroness is the other leader. She's in a slightly different room, but she kind of aggroes in the fight eventually. And then also some sharks, some more Sahuagin champions, a really nasty room. And I'm not sure if you would have been able to do both that room and the temple, because both of them were big kind of boss fights. And the temple was way the more interesting room. So that's why I was definitely motivating you guys to go do that
Yeah.
that temple fight like 2 sessions ago.
That's one where the Lizard Queen was being trapped.
Yes. Yeah,
Oh,
with the
okay.
big lobster monster guy, the Chul, and all the
Yeah. Yep.
Sahuagin priestesses. Yeah.
And
So
is it like circular? Like, could you go one direction and still hit everything, or would you have to like backtrack?
no, yeah, you can go. It's all circular.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you could have technically gone through everything, but like so much that dungeon is what you saw with when you like spotted that one other room that was just full of. It's just rooms full of bad guys. They're just barracks everywhere. There's just dudes everywhere. Like it's just a deadly ass dungeon with it's not. This isn't an interesting dungeon to explore. It's meant to be a really deadly, dangerous dungeon, and you need to just try to hit your objectives and then get out. But it's pretty difficult.
Yeah.
And it's not that attractive. Bear did a fantastic job translating it onto a nice color map that's good for virtual tabletop, but like the design of it isn't very interesting. It's just these long meandering hallways with empty rooms and stuff, which is why I montaged you all last session through.
That's when the Lizard Queen basically took over and just said like, "Hey, follow me." And right?
Well, yeah, you guys had you reached the surface, you freed the prisoners, and then yeah, they were like, "Hey, we know we cleared a path. Let's go this way." And then she could definitely help you guys go that way. Yeah. Which worked out because there were no enemies there, so we could just kind of montage you through this entire level, and it was not an interesting level to. It's literally empty rooms. There's nothing there. So that was the best sequence of events. And then once we made it here, I was like, all right, I think we can do this. Will be so. The weird thing is we didn't get a final boss fight here, but you know,
I feel like the
it's
wall
climactic
of
though, right?
Horde of Sahuagin was a fine boss.
Yeah, it was a fine boss. Yeah, and
the Sahuagin Horde.
I think that's a nice breakup of pacing in video games too, when it's like you have this big climactic thing and it's not necessarily a boss, but you're like having to run and all this crazy shit's happening, and that can be an ending also, a big climax.
Yeah.
And to me, you guys already had kind of the boss fight, which was that temple battle anyway. That was just happened to be halfway through this dungeon.
Yeah, I think of like the I don't know, the Uncharted games where like sometimes the climactic set piece is one like a boss fight that you're fighting a helicopter or something, and sometimes it's like I gotta get the fuck out of here because there's an army behind me, and that's the climactic.
Just it's an action sequence.
Piece. Yeah.
Yep, and this was the action set piece, and then I had teased the fact last session, I think, where the queen was like went into a trance and she's like, all right, I contacted my people.
Yes.
Like she's got all these weird powers.
I was waiting for that. I was like, where's the lizard at? Like,
where are my lizards at? This was always my plan. I didn't know when to trigger it. It was just kind of in my notes to be like, all right, at some point, once they reach room 1, trigger those folk coming in. Weirdly, the timing you guys had though is I was gonna have them trigger. They come in, they burst in, they're throwing down spears, but by the time that I triggered them, you guys actually had taken out everybody, so it was just more a question of like, oh, they're just covering you for the Sahuagin horde coming in. So it was
that was fine because that became like
they were there to bail you guys out of a really bad situation had they needed
and they were
to.
Also there, and they were there to like turn it from a like turn-based combat scenario to a cutscene.
Yes,
right?
that's exactly right. Yeah, to a cinematic thing. And that was part of my thing. It's like, okay, how long do I go after I trigger this scene? And it depends on the situation you guys are in. So in this case, I think we had to run it for at least another full round as you guys, because I was like, I need to get everybody to like room 1 at least before we go into cutscene mode. But I'm glad you guys decided on using the gate system, because that was something that made it easy for me to be like, okay, well now that they're stopped for a hot second, you guys can
all get out.
Yeah, because I didn't. Again,
what would you have done if Godwall had gone down? Like, I mean, you only attacked with like 4 or 5 of your guys. I know there were like 9, 10 of them around me, so you could have kept going if you wanted to. Like throwing.
It felt pretty punitive. I think I had surrounded you with 4 people in melee, and I was like, I'm gonna attack with these 4.
Yeah.
And then we're gonna let the dice decide how that works.
Yeah.
And you survived it, so I was like, all right, I'm not going to do more than that. I'll do 4. I mean, it was like 9 attacks or something. Like it was a lot.
Something like that. It was again, the hill room is the only reason I survived.
Yeah.
But I kept thinking like, what is he going to do if I go down? Like if I drop, I mean, the gate wouldn't fall because none of the Sahuagin had pulled the lever.
Not yet. Yeah. I mean,
I assume they wouldn't, because they'd want to catch everybody that's in room 1, so they would have tried to, they would have wanted to go through the gate.
I think we would have continued at least that round. We still had,
it would have been Mech and Savra's turn next, I believe.
Correct.
I'm
Yeah.
sure we would have thought to like pull you, drag you
Right.
somehow.
Right.
That's what I'm
Uh,
picturing. I think between the allies, yeah, because that was like the end of the Sawagan. What they were doing would be attacking you. So then it would have been their turns, and I would just kind of leave it to them to come up with some plan of trying to drag you and do
Boy,
this is the same
that would have
combo.
been even more climactic.
Yeah.
Ending. Like Gottwald goes down, they have to drag him out, and then they have to shut the gate behind him.
Yeah.
as they pull him out.
Yeah, basically, and then and if you can't get the gate, then Lizard Folk can come in and kind of help you. Like would have been
that's
try to do a cutscene thing. The tricky thing for the DM at this point is like, how much when do I do the cutscene versus when are we still in the nitty gritty like a battle mode? And that was
Right.
something I'm paying attention to is like what is Gottwald's hit point situation is because I don't want to
Yeah,
take away
yeah.
from this moment like mechanically, but
Yeah.
we're like on the cusp of the cutscene, so. It's a tricky situation, but I think in this case you would have enough allies to probably pull you out of this and at least like grab your body or something. I assume when you go down, you lose Embiggen. Did we? That's
Good
come up
question.
before.
I don't know. I'm not sure about
You
that.
slip
It's
into
not
unconsciousness.
concentration.
Yeah.
It does just say a minute, but so I'm not sure.
Huh? Because that would be pretty tricky if you were still big
Yeah.
and they were trying to drag you back.
A 10-foot tall guy.
Yeah, then that's when I start
Trying
getting
to-
really punitive. I'm like, all right, make a strength check just to drag your
Yeah.
friend over. And you're like, I can't pull you. You're too big. Very dramatic.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am. What did you guys think of this whole place in general? Now that we're done with it, this whole this is called the final enemy in Ghosts of Saltmarsh, and it's meant to be the culmination of the original Saltmarsh trilogy about the rise of the Sawagan threat, basically.
I felt like it was very directed by you, which I appreciate because like you said, like so much of it was just sort of empty hallways and bad rooms full of enemies. So in terms of the construction, I feel like you kind of guided us a bit, which I feel like it was necessary because yeah, it's full of bad hallways and bad rooms. But I liked it.
Yeah, I like the goals of coming in here. It's like an infiltration sort of thing.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm telling you, man,
It's
we
just-
need to run that Golden Vault Keys from the Golden Vault campaign as a bunch of heists. I really think this group would vibe with a bunch of heist missions and you guys playing almost
Yeah,
like secret agents
yeah.
and be like, here's your mission and all the they're all kind of different heists. I don't want to spoil them too much, but there's a huge variety and they're all kind of cool dungeon maps and stuff. But that was on my list of campaign ideas to run when we went to the poll, and I think the whole vibe of that would go over very well with this group, given what how you guys have turned certain areas and made them even more fun.
Right.
And yeah, they're all objective based missions, right? You go. It's not like you go into a dungeon crawl just to defeat a boss. It's like, no, we're going into this location to do this specific thing.
Yes.
We're stealing this, or we're putting this back, or we're taking this person out, or whatever it is. In this case, you had multiple.
It kind of does an interesting thing where it kind of, in a good way, de-incentivizes the kind of at least my personal default when I'm playing in a computer RPG or video game RPG of like I'm gonna go counterclockwise and explore every single goddamn room and do the whole thing in its entirety and then work my way inward. I like that because it kind of de-incentivizes that where you're like, all right, you cannot explore this whole place.
Yeah.
You've got your 3 or 4 objectives. You've got to hit those. That's what you're here for.
Yeah.
Like, look at the map. How are you going to hit those 3 or 4 without, killing yourself in the process?
Right. Yeah. And you guys, I've also realized, are not the best team who is equipped with infiltration and reconnaissance either. You don't have a lot of
one person. We got one scout.
Yeah, you got
the
one
rest
scout.
Of us can't see in the dark and don't know what's going on.
Right. You don't have a lot of good like abilities or
Yeah.
builds for that kind of thing, which I did notice pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And it was underwater, which doesn't help either for most of the dungeon.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So, but I think if you had a team built for heist stuff, it would be very cool.
Yeah.
But I think so. This is a tricky one for me because I also like the objective stuff. I did think it made things more interesting. On the other hand, the dungeon design is kind of a drag. and you guys ended up having to be here for far longer than I think any of us would have liked. This ended up being the single longest quest arc of the entire campaign so far, and is not even close. Like, previously, our record holder was 5 sessions in one quest arc or one level, and this one we just finished 8.
Yeah.
So it's I guess I have mixed feelings about it ultimately in terms of its inclusion here.
Yeah.
It did what I wanted it to do in terms of the story, which is like, hey, I needed a big Sahuagin dungeon. I'm using this one. Or maybe I didn't need a Sahuagin dungeon. I just, because I knew about this one from Ghost of Saltmarsh, I decided to use this one and adapt it, and thus turn the Sahuagin into a big threat on their own.
Yeah.
I guess I don't regret it necessarily, but my main regret.
I think it's a good dungeon, but it required you to sort of guide us a little bit, and I feel like it's fine.
Which thankfully this group doesn't mind. I think you guys are
generally
acquiesce to being.
Yeah, and there was a couple times where we poked our head into rooms and we were like, no, nope, So it wasn't
mainly
like
for
completely
notes.
like railroaded. We had some latitude, and we correctly assumed that like there was no good reason to engage with certain rooms.
Yeah, and the one choice you guys could make, I think, was very down there at level 3. You guys could have gone right or left to go up those stairs ultimately, which was the only real choice you had. And I the only thing I should have done is mitigate the amount of enemies in that one barracks room, because that was a slog. We spent so many.
The one I wasn't here for?
One you weren't here for, yeah.
Okay.
Well, you were here for the beginning of it. It's that one we stopped in the middle, and then you leaving, I took out some enemies, and it still ended up being a friggin' slog.
Bad,
and then it aggroed more enemies above. I was like, oh, this is just nasty. So that was about. For me, we just spent too many sessions that was just pure, like, we just got to get through this one combat encounter. There were like 3 or 4 sessions that were just pure single combat encounters, which was a bit of a slog, which is why I liked the last session so much, because it was that whole fun chase sequence. This one technically also was one big combat encounter, but at least it had a little bit extra stuff going on and some falling action at the end. Who's retiring the... Borges is our backup NPC right now. If somebody were to actually die, if anything, this is the campaign.
But then you have to come up with like PC like character abilities for an NPC. Well, I don't know. Is Lakota a PC character option?
I don't think so.
Okay,
you could borrow anyone. You could borrow a Triton or anyone.
You could borrow a Triton.
It's the same thing, really.
Yeah, that's true.
And then just build him as whatever kind of. He's already like just a tanky fighter, I guess.
Yep.
But this is the one campaign where we have a stable of backup player characters in the form of all your other crew members. You keep on saving these other rescued NPCs, which is kind of a cool like side effect. I remember the second Pillars of Eternity game, and any like the Suikoden series does this really well, where you're like gaining allies as you adventure, and they just go back to your headquarters, and it's just neat to collect them like. Pokemon or whatever, just see them in action, and you could always go chat with them if you wanted to. Like, I always like that effect, and it really feels like a fun progression for a campaign to sort of build up your like coalition beyond your base party. And in some cases, you've got these extra people should you need them. It does make it a bit headachy when I do like just random seawater encounters, and I'm like, oh yeah, now I gotta have like all these extra like combatants. Although, frankly, at this level. I'm tempted to start, which I think I get to this point in most campaigns where I'm like, all right, we can kind of montage you past like random encounters at this point. You guys can basically take out anything that's coming at you.
Yeah.
Unless it's something that's like just outside of the next area that's going to help like balance it out or something.
And be part of the same adventuring day.
Yeah. Which I already kind of do that because I don't let you guys have like long rest while you're exploring. But even then, I'm like, I don't know. We're at the level you're going to be at. We don't really need to do random encounters so much, I guess, unless you're in like a really, really nasty place.
Right.
Anything else about the Sahuagin Stronghold? Not much treasure-wise.
Demnix drew. He put in the call from the deep.
All right.
Discard. He drew exactly what I was imagining with Gottwald swimming armor.
It's like European style speedo.
It's just a speedo and like a bikini top.
Like a tube top thing.
Yeah,
I'll have to check it out after. I can't switch off of it or lose our cameras.
Yeah. But that is exactly what I was imagining.
Amazing.
He has to put on to swim through the water.
does fine job every time. Appreciate you, Dennis.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Cool.
But I thought it was cool. I mean, the water thing was definitely a challenge. Like that the water and the dark were like,
spoiler alert, it
okay.
will not be the last dungeon you do that is underwater.
Yeah. Which, I mean, now I've got my breathing underwater necklace.
There you go.
I'm fine in that regard. But
I am trying to pace things where it's like above water, below water, above water,
Yeah.
below water. You know, I don't want to do too much. And we just did a
Yeah,
whole
right,
bunch,
yes.
so.
and I really, really felt my lack of plate armor in this dungeon. Like,
Yeah,
like,
all those
there were
14s and
multiple points-
15s and 16s hitting you.
Yeah,
like-
where I was like, all right, should I just stop and put on the plate armor and just clank my way underwater through this place?
I appreciated
that
you putting
better?
the water stuff on. It was
Yeah.
definitely painful for you. We don't usually run into
But I
that
also-
situation very
Yeah,
often
I
where
also
players
kinda
actually
like
have
that.
to
like
juggle
having
magic
to
items.
make that functional choice of like, well, you get this armor that doesn't provide much protection, but it
Yeah.
lets you swim. Whereas other armor is a lot of protection, but you're
It's like having a loadout that you're saving.
Yeah, yeah,
It's like I
exactly,
need
yeah.
my water loadout.
Yep.
Yeah, typically players just attune to their stuff, and then that's what they do until they find something else better. But in this, which you don't have to attune that armor, but there's interesting where you have to kind of juggle your build a little bit.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm still heavy at Dennis.
I gotta go check this
You
out.
go.
I'm excited to put that on the next the fan art folder.
Yep.
All right, I think that will do it for this week's Chat from the Deep. Thank you to Chris and Raymond. Thank you to all the wonderful fans for watching, and we will see you next time.